This clip that you're about to see is, it's incredible to me because Rush Limbaugh was one of the most relentless pro-war propagandists when it came to Iraq. During the time when I was just getting involved in politics and I was having my own political awakening and I was getting really into it, one of the things I remember as clear as day, like it happened yesterday, is listening to Rush Limbaugh rant endlessly about how the war in Iraq is the right thing to do, it's the just thing to do, it's the moral thing to do, Bush is right, and the Democrats who are against it are not only wrong, but they're anti-American, and they hate the country, and they're unpatriotic, and they want us to fail, and all this stuff. So he's just a rank propagandist. Well, now, Rush Limbaugh is going to kind of pretend like he was against it all along.
These are the people that told us there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Let's go back to the Iraq War, 2003. George W. Bush spends a year and a half traveling the country, preparing everybody, lobbying the American people to support it. Goes to the United Nations, has satellite photos, all kinds of stuff. Colin Powell up there showing the photos, supposedly, of weapons of mass destruction installations in Iraq of Saddam Hussein and the European. Our allies in the intelligence community all support this. Now, Bush, as a Republican, probably not popular with the deep state, particularly after how he was elected. There was outrage. The Florida recount in 2000, a lot of Democrats, a lot of deep staters think that Gore should have been president. He won the popular vote. They think the Supreme Court unfairly put Bush in there. I think there was as much resentment in the deep state, we just didn't call it that then, for George W. Bush as there is today for Donald Trump. And if not the same, it's close. I think, how could so many different intelligence agencies get something so wrong as weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? And remember, they gave Bush mounds of satellite photo evidence, documentation evidence. Colin Powell was dispatched to the United Nations to present this evidence, and it was all bogus because we went in there. It was the pretext for invading Iraq after 9/11. We get in there, and there are no weapons of mass destruction. It was one of the most embarrassing things. The Bush administration had to scramble. Everybody had to scramble. What I have seen this bunch of people in the intelligence community capable, what they've tried with Trump here, this whole Russia meddling, Trump colluding, this whole thing is a gigantic lie, a totally bogus hoax, a silent coup. That's when I began to think the weapons of mass destruction thing was a setup against Bush, too. My point is this. Why should we believe these people?
Okay, I don't even know where to begin with this. So, listen, yeah, Russiagate was BS. Russiagate pushed by the intelligence agencies. Nonsense. I knew that. There are many people on the left who I cited in an earlier segment who believe that as well, and we argued for that relentlessly. But these are all people, by and large, who were also skeptical of the lies about Iraq. You were not. You were not. So look at what he does to try to take responsibility away from the Republicans. What does he do? He says Bush was basically duped into Iraq, and in other words, like he didn't want to do it. He was his hand was forced into doing it, and then we learned later on, like, oh, it was based on lies or whatever. But no, even after that was exposed that it was based on lies, we stayed there. So if there was like, oh, sorry, I tripped and fell and I was forced, my hand was forced, I had to go into Iraq. Okay, well then the second we learned, hold on now, Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11 and wasn't connected to Osama bin Laden. What are we talking about here? And there are no weapons of mass destruction either. And he's not about to attack us or anything like that. Wouldn't he have, oh my God, okay, my bad. Anyway, bring the troops home, bring the troops home, bring the troops home. They didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? Because, Rush, they are the deep state. They are the deep state. Okay, guys, he says, I don't think Bush was popular with the deep state because of how he got elected. So in other words, he's trying to say, like, really, it's Democrats in the deep state who run everything. Dude, Bush's dad was the CIA director. That's the definition of deep state. H.W. Bush was CIA director and then president. Guys, they are the insiders. They are the neocons. They are the deep state. What are you talking about? This was their plan all along. Donald Rumsfeld, Bill Kristol, Paul Wolfowitz, the neocon project for a new American century. Now, if you want to make the argument Cheney was more steering the ship than Bush, that's fair, but Bush was still a willing participant. He's trying to say, oh, it's all the deep state's fault, and the deep state are just, a bunch of Democrats. The Republicans are the outsiders and the anti-establishment people. Rush, we just saw the story the other day. They're trying to argue now that, Bernie Sanders is being helped by Russia too. Oh, so much for that. Oh, they're all just Democrats in the deep state doing their thing. Listen, he's such a partisan hack. You can't wrap your mind around the degree to which he's a partisan hack. Everything is just Democrat, Republican, Republican good, Democrat bad. He spent the entire Bush era defending everything Bush did. Guantanamo Bay, torture, Abu Ghraib, you name it. All of the countless civilian casualties. This guy was the most relentless pro-war propagandist, accusing Americans who were against it of being, anti-American, unpatriotic, and all that stuff. And now, casually, how many years later, frickin' 17 years later, he's like, oh yeah, it was based on lies. By the way, this is the first time he's ever admitted that or said that. Like, oh, it was based on lies, it's not true. Even when Trump was running in 2015 and 2016, and Trump was saying on the debate stage that the Iraq war was a sham and it was nonsense, we should have never gone in the first place, Rush Limbaugh was not backing Trump when he was saying that. Rush Limbaugh, for the longest time, withheld jumping on the Trump train. He never endorsed anybody, but he was definitely more sympathetic to like Ted Cruz and that wing of the party than he was to Trump. So he was always the biggest proponent of the Iraq war. One of the biggest propagandists for the Iraq war, and now casually he's like, it was a deep state plot, and it was the Democrats who were pushing it relentlessly. It was you who was pushing it relentlessly. It was Bush who was doing it relentlessly. It was Cheney who was doing it relentlessly. It was the neocon deep state administration. The entire administration was the deep state. They were one and the same. Them and the deep state are the same thing. But now that he thinks he could spin it to say Democrat bad, Democrat in control, he ties in Russiagate and says like, oh, they were lying about Russiagate, so why should we trust these people? They also lied about the Iraq war. Right, along with you and the entire administration. He refuses to admit that there's also a Republican establishment that makes up the deep state. He refuses to admit that. He doesn't understand or care that really this is about elites versus everybody else. To him, he always sees in partisan terms. Democrat, Republican, Republican always good, Democrat always bad. That's why I defended everything George W. Bush did every step of the way. And when Trump says the opposite, I'll defend that too. Even though it's a logical contradiction, it doesn't matter because I don't care about contradictions. My job is to be a propagandist, and that's what I'm doing out here. So, really a sycophant, man. Listen, he is like a textbook definition of an authoritarian. Why do I say that? Because whoever his Republican leader is, he just plays defense. That's it. If Bush is in office, everything Bush does is right. Everything the Democrats disagree with him on, they're wrong. Now that it's Trump, everything Trump does is right. Anything the Democrats disagree with him on, they're wrong. And the details literally just don't matter. They don't matter at all. And now to have him casually admit like, oh yeah, the people... So wait a second, Rush, are you saying... this is the logical implication of what you're saying, but he would never actually say this part. You just said the Iraq war was based on lies. You spent fucking 15 years saying it wasn't, and anybody who says that is unpatriotic. So are you now saying on the record the Democrats are correct about that and we're correct about that every step of the way? If you pose that question to him, there's no way he'd give a direct answer and say, yes, that's what I'm saying. No way. No way. Because again, his show is all it is Republican propaganda. To try to say Bush... like, oh, he was just being controlled by a Democratic deep state. That takes away all agency from everything the Bush administration did. No, it was Bush, it was Cheney, it was Rumsfeld, it was Wolfowitz, it was Bill Kristol, it was everybody in that administration, and they are the deep state. And that's why now you see the same deep state that, hates Trump for cultural reasons now, because he's doing what they want, but they hate him for cultural reasons now. They're going to hate Bernie Sanders way more because Bernie's actually going to change stuff.